Hello guys, myself M. Jnana Prakash, and today in this video we are going to talk about the sports training and the different types of sports training. So what do you mean by sports training? So let me explain about it. So sports training is a planned and controlled process in which for achieving a goal or changes in complex motor performance, ability to act a perform. Like to simply say about what to mean sports training, it's a process to prepare an athlete for a task. For example, Usain Bolt preparing for the Olympic meet. So he has the 4 years gap where he'll be preparing for his Olympic meet. So next we'll move on to some concepts of sports training. So the sports training is a specialized process of all-round physical conditioning aimed at preparation for performance in sports. It also includes training, sports competitions, special nutrition, special rehabilitation treatments, assessment of performance capacity, and psychological factors. And it's basically a form of preparation of a sportsman principle, where the first one is specificity, the second one is progression, the third one is overload, and the fourth one is reversibility, and the fifth one is recovery and rest, and the last one is diminishing return, and the seventh one is uh, individuality. So now let's move on to the first topic. So the first one is specificity. The specificity is a principle that is to develop a physical fitness and to train the energy system and muscle as closely as possible to the way that they are used to particular sport. So the principle implies that to become better at a particular exercise or skill, they must be performed. So to have a good stamina, uh, the stamina runs must be performed and not short sprints. So training must also be specific to individual abilities such as tolerance to training stress and recoverability. So to simply say about specificity, a specific if a specific player who trains for a specific skill to perform his best performance, to give his best performance. For example, a runner should run to improve his running performance, or to tell exactly, a long distance runner who trains on his cardiovascular system, and he trains especially on long distance running so that the muscles get adapted, and he um, particularly concentrates on his long distance or cardiovascular endurance rather than a short sprint or an anaerobic system. Another example is where a basketball player develops a skill of dribbling, where in that there are many skills to develop, but dribbling is also a specific skill where he improves that and he specifically practices on it. Okay. Next, let's go to the next principle, that is progression. So progression is a steadily improvement in fitness levels, like physical demands to overload an athlete's system must continuously increase. So if the training demand is increased too quickly, players will be unable to adapt and may break down. Like he might get an injury and it might cause him a breakdown. If the demand is not adequate, they will not reach optimum fitness level. If the demand is not proper or in a stage of step by step, then the athlete's optimum fitness level will not be seen. So that you should increase the overload, which can be achieved by using FIT principle. Like FIT principle is nothing but F stands for frequency, I stands for intensity, T stands for time taken or duration. Another T stands for type of training which you do. So when your body adapts to its present routine, you get a result. You get what you progress properly, and you progress in a step-by-step way where you get your result in a short period of time, in a progressive way. So frequency is nothing but how often you do your training or your workout, and intensity is where you put your load, where how many reps you do, or how much weight you add on, like a step by step. And time is where you take a duration, you do this much and then you take a rest, and then you do that again, you take that much time to do your workout. And the type of training where you take according to your specificity, like continuous training or weight training and etc. In principles of progression, the overload should not be increased too rapidly, okay, and then rapid increase in overload may lead to injury or muscle damage. So now we'll see in principles of sports training. Now we are going to see about overload, the principle of overload. So in principle of overload, there should be greater than normal load on the body as required for training adaptation. So in this, where the overload should be done gradually, where you get a progression according to it. There should be a gradual increase in your load or workout or in which you do. In this principles of overload, the training load should be increased for improving the performance. So the load should be increased gradually, step by step, where you get an improving. You try to do you actually do it for improving your performance, right? So you need to load according to it so that you improve it, or else if it is in a static way, like the effectiveness of training diminishes if the training load is static. Like if the load is the same and you do it for a month, and then as 2 months and 3, and you go on with the same weight or the same reps, there won't be any improvement in your performance or in your body adaptation of muscles or any change in that. It would be the same and static, and you will not see any progression or result in it. So you need to have a continuous improvement. So the training load should be increased after the adaptation of previous training load. So after your previous training, when your muscle gets adapted to it, you load an extra weight, where you try to load it where you can progress gradually. So loading is reps you do should be from a small basic, like simple to complex. So you can't directly go to complex, where you might have injuries or you might get injuries, and it might give you a break, and that might also cause you a fatigue in it. So let's move on to the next one, that is reversibility. So to explain about reversibility, if a player or an athlete stops training, their gains will disappear quicker than they were gained. The rate of decline for athletes will depend on the length of training before detraining. So the specific muscle group and other factors also affects. So to maintain a moderately high level of fitness year round is easier than during detraining at the end of the season, and then retraining at the beginning of the next. So to simply explain about reversibility is where you train for a particular period, and then you stop, you give a break, and then again you train, where you lose everything at that rest period, and then you again start to gain from the basic. So you actually in the rest period you need to have some physical activity to sustain that muscle movement or muscle adaptation. When you give a complete rest period in that, or you give a complete break, um, your uh, your gains whichever you have attained till that period might decrease as fast as you gained your progression in your muscles. So try to maintain a physical activity in your off season. For example, you might be an athlete. So the athletes lose the effects of training after they stop working out. So, however, the determining effects can be reversed when training is resumed. So, in short, the training starts to occur within a relatively short time of period after training ceases. So, the athlete lose the effects of training after they stop working out. So, however, the determining effects can be reversed when training is resumed. In short, the training starts to occur within a relatively short time period after training ceases. So, the athletes or a sports person should or should have a physical activity in their off season to stop reversibility, or to have to have a progressive uh, way of training. And then let's move on to the next one, that is rest and recovery, which is more important and essential for an athlete or any sports person. So a body regenerates during rest and becomes better and strong than before. So the rest has or plays a huge role for a sports person and recovery. So the rest period which you give will help you to recover from your injuries or your overtraining, or it gives a pleasant or a rest for the muscles, where it gets adapts according to it, and according to its rest, it becomes stronger and gives a better performance the next progression way when you do it. So training programs should be planned to provide proper rest and interval between training activities. So when you train, also you need to give a proper rest or interval between them, where you give a rest to that particular specific muscle, and then you again train on it. So the muscle adapts according to it and gives a progression in it, and shows you a result. So now let's move on to the principle of sports training, the principle of individual difference. So every sports person is different, hence response to exercise or load varies. Like to tell you simply, each person each person differ from one another. Uh, to simply say it, take Ronaldo and Messi. For example, let's take the common people where we all know Messi and Ronaldo. Like, each play the same game, but football, but have a different different structure of body, where Messi is a tactical player, but Ronaldo is a physical player. If you see them about where Messi has a small he has a low weight, but he has a good tactic skill where he gives his performance, and he scores and he gets a great result, and he trains according to his specificity. He works on his specificity also. Take exactly as Ronaldo, he has a good structure where he is a muscular person, and he trains according to his specificity, where he gains his muscle and he gives a greater performance in it. So individual to individual it varies a lot. In principle of individual difference, uh, to explain about it, a training program should be modified to take individual difference into following consideration. So some ways of considerations are large muscles heal slower than these smaller muscles, and we need to know which fiber or which fiber he is, the fast twitch fiber or the slow twitch fiber, where the fast twitch fiber muscle recover quicker than the slow twitch fiber muscle. Fast twitch fibers are like a person who can run 100 meters, so they run in a short distance, and they progress in anaerobic activities. But a slow twitch fiber is basically an aerobic person, where he trains on a long distance running or a continuous training. And the next part is women requires more recovery time than men. And then the next one is fast or explosive movements require more recovery time. So it varies to individual to individual. For an example, if you take a fast twitch and slow twitch, we know that the recovery period differs in both the twitches. So if a fast twitch fiber or like if a 100-meter runner runs 100 meter, and he needs a long time where he gets to recover, he gets a recovery, and again he gives the same performance. But if you take a slow twitch fiber where he maintains at the same pace, where he can perform for a long period. So to an individual to individual it varies, and the sports training varies. So you need to consider their age, their gender, their fiber, the specificity and their goal. So rather than you train according equally to everyone, you need to see their individuality and their goal and their specificity, where you train them according to that, and which gives a progression for them and as well as you. So this principles of sports training is more important, and it gives it helps you to give a load or give a step or progression to the player as well as you. So I hope you all understood, and have a great day.